Welcome everybody to the West Canada Valley Board of Education regular meeting, Monday, February 13th, 2023. Can we please stand for the pledge? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First thing, we're going to hear from the administrators. Mr. Doherty, would you like to go first? Sure.
Hello. Fall, still nothing new coming out about that yet. As for winter sports, we're wrapping the seasons up right now. Sectional tournaments have either begun or they'll be starting this week. We had another very successful winter season for West Canada Valley. We were Center State Conference League champions this winter for boys varsity basketball, boys JV basketball, girls varsity basketball, girls varsity indoor track, and girls varsity bowling. Sectional championships are ready this winter for girls bowling and girls indoor track. Our girls bowlers will be competing in the state championships on March 12th at the AMF Strike and Spare Lane in Syracuse. And indoor track at this point is done as a competitive team event. Once you're sectional champions, that's it. But you're able to move on through the open qualifiers. That's the start of the state tournament. So at this point, we still have a few athletes moving on. They'll be competing on the 15th at OCC to see if they can further move on from there. It's Haley Fellharber. She is competing in the long jump, pole vault, and triple jump still. Faith Perry in the shot put. Alyssa Young's in the 55 hurdles, the long jump, and the triple jump. And then we have two boys that are still competing for the weight throw. That's Ian Farber and Blake Reese. Last meeting we had a question about the cheer. The last competition that we were at that I have the results from. There were 16 schools that competed at it. 4 of them were Class AA, 3 of them Class A, 5 Class B, 1 Class C, and 3 Class D schools. We finished second in Class D, but one thing to note is that we beat 2 Class AA teams and 1 Class C team as well. They will have sectionals this Saturday at OCC. As far as spring sports, further update, we're up to 15 now signed up for baseball. Again, I don't know that all 15 of those come out, if they do, but I actually talked to Remsen today and they're up to 10 on their list. So at this point, as of today, they're not necessarily looking to do a combination, but over the next month's time, I could come back and be like, they're down to 4 and they would still like to move forward with this. And our 15 could very easily turn into 11 or 10 or something like that. So it's not off the table, but it's not looking as much of a foregone conclusion as it was before. As far as miscellaneous stuff, the fitness center, open swim, and hall walking are all going very well. The fitness center is averaging about 10 people a night. The pool night for adult swim is averaging anywhere from 6 to 10 swimmers a night. And the hallways, I would say that we have probably about 4 or 5 people on a weeknight here walking in the halls. We have a sign-in for them over here that they stop in on. The pool has a sign-in binder when they come in, and the fitness center has one right in there. So, does anybody have any questions?
Nope.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Mrs. Holmes.
Just a few things, mostly follow-ups from the last time. January 18th through 26th, the teachers participated in their grade level data days. They were interrupted by some of the inclement weather days that we had, and so we continued that. We had a half day on January 27th. They worked together for the RTI progress reports that go out to the parents as well as report cards, but they also completed those RTI action plans that they started on their data days. We also had Corey Rogotsky come back. I talked a little bit about him the last time. He works with Tanya Schnabel. She does the literacy, he does the math. Our 5th grade teachers were interested in meeting with him again. They wanted to go over some of the guide sheets that he started with them, and also they wanted to revise some of the assessments to include some more computation problems. And then our teachers of K1 and 2, they were interested after they heard it from the older teachers, so they wanted to meet with him. So the second part of his day was actually spent with the primary teachers, and they looked at revising some of their assessments as well as implementing some of the strategies that he uses in his math workshop. And then on January 31st, we had our 6th graders. They went to Simeon's for their annual field trip there. And Tanya Schnabel and I did complete the book study that I talked about a little bit the last time. with the K-4 teachers. They really enjoyed it. They thought they got a lot out of that, so we'll be offering that for 5 through 8 teachers more than likely this summer. They didn't join us this time around because we're also doing extended day. That's taken off. Everyone's coming, with transportation again being key. We've got everyone participating that signed up for it, so I haven't had any issues at all with that. Questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ray?
So the past month's been pretty busy with all the weather stuff we had. We had multiple snow days, a couple delays, and then we had to go home early. So it was a little busy there. Extended day started January 10th, like Mrs. Holmes said. Right now we're doing it with 3 routes. Leaving at about 4:15 is when we pull out of the yard. We're getting back in time for the late bus. Starting on the 28th of February, looks like we're gonna have some 3rd and 4th graders that are gonna be taking advantage of the extended day. Right now we're waiting to see who actually needs a ride, where they're going, and then we're gonna have to adjust some routes from there. Looking like we're gonna have to add probably 2 buses to that extended day piece, and maybe flex the time a little bit by a few minutes when we leave. DOT was here twice in the past month, just because the way the schedule falls, they were like 2 weeks in a row, so they're here the 18th and then on the 3rd, no defects noted at all. The new buses, the 3 large ones, estimated delivery should be February 27th, and our small bus is estimated for May, same as last time. However, they said they do have a VIN number at this point, and the chassis is on its way to the manufacturer to be built, so. Any questions?
Thank you. Okay.
So first thing is we had the Herkimer Originals game on the 15th. It was a nice turnout. I want to thank everybody who helped with that. Mr. and Mrs. Conover, Mr. Doherty, maintenance, Tina, and everybody worked in there as a fundraiser. Went really well. Really enjoyed the game. Had a decent turnout, but I think the Bills game kind of reduced some of that. This week's Spirit Week. We're going to have a pep rally at the end of the week. Kids are excited about that. In the last week of January, the last full week of January, I had Regents exams, and I actually gave you a copy of the English scores there. Average score on that exam was a 81, and we only had 2 failures. So this is the 11th graders taking it in January. We normally do it in June, but we've been giving it in January to give the kids 2 chances at it in case they struggle with it, but we had really great success. Ms. Ackman does a great job. It's gonna be sad to lose her. She's a great teacher, so I'd like to thank her for her hard work and getting our kids to where they are, especially after COVID. You can see there a lot of really high scores, and that's about it. Any questions?
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to accept the consent agenda. Sean first, Sarah second, all in favor? Motion to enter executive session for the appointment of personnel matters, including review and appointment of employees and contract negotiations. Sean first, Sarah second, all in favor? welcome back, everybody. We're moving on to the action items. Personnel report. A motion to accept the resignation of Julie Purinton, elementary literacy teacher for the purpose of retirement effective June 30th, 2023. Sean first, Shauna second, all in favor.
With regret, please.
Motion to accept the resignation of Carly Maloney, middle school, high school science teacher effective February 17th, 2023. Janine first, Sarah second, all in favor. A motion to accept the resignation of Ruth Dillenbeck, food service worker for the purpose of retirement effective January 12th, 2023. Shauna first, Sarah second, all in favor. Motion to accept the resignation of Gretchen Blint, middle school, high school special education teacher, effective August 31st, 2023. Janine first, Sean second, all in favor. A motion to accept the resignation of Nancy Fulmer, teacher assistant for the purpose of retirement, effective June 30th, 2023. Sarah first, Janine second, all in favor.
No.
A motion to accept the resignation of Nancy Gallagher, teacher assistant, for the purpose of retirement effective June 30th, 2023. Sean first, Sarah second, all in favor. A motion to rescind the appointment of Stefan Sinikowski, provisional custodian, effective February 3rd, 2023. Sean first, Janine second, all in favor. A motion to appoint Gretchen Blint, English teacher, 7 through 12, 3-year probationary appointment in the 10-year area of English, 7 through 12, per the negotiated salary of the WCVTA bargaining agreement effective September 1st, 2023. Janine first, Shauna second, all in favor. Motion to appoint Shaylee Cole, licensed master social worker, step 1 of the WCVTA bargaining agreement, 4-year probationary appointment in the 10-year area of social work effective February 27th, 2023. Sean first, Sarah second, all in favor? Okay, motion to appoint Pam Greco, part-time food service worker, per the negotiated hourly rate of the CSEA bargaining agreement effective February 14th, 2023. Janine first, Pete second, all in favor? Motion to appoint Dana Windecker, bus driver, per the negotiated hourly rate of the CSEA bargaining agreement effective January 10th, 2023. Sean first, Sarah second, all in favor? Motion to appoint Cresta Jackson, bus driver, per the negotiated hourly rate of the CSEA bargaining agreement effective February 27th, 2023. Sean first, Sarah second, all in favor? Motion to appoint Mark Maxwell, coach, boys varsity baseball, step 3 of the extracurricular index of the WCVTA bargaining agreement effective 2022-23 school year. Janine first, Sarah second, all in favor. Motion to appoint Ben Russo, coach, boys modified baseball, step 2 of the extracurricular index of the WCVTA bargaining agreement effective 2022-23 school year. Sean first, Pete second, all in favor. Motion to appoint Todd Hoban, head coach, boys track, step 5 of the extracurricular index of the WCVTA bargaining agreement effective 2022-23 school year. Shauna first, Sean second, all in favor. Motion to appoint Dan Capron, assistant coach, boys track, step 5 of the extracurricular index of the WCVTA bargaining agreement effective 2022-23 school year. Janine first, Shauna second, all in favor. Motion to appoint Ed Doherty, coach, boys golf, step 5 of the extracurricular index of the WCVTA bargaining agreement effective 2022-23 school year. Janine first, Sean second, all in favor. Motion to appoint Ron Lindsay, coach, girls varsity softball, step 5 of the extracurricular index of the WCVTA bargaining agreement effective 2022-23 school year. Sarah first, Shauna second, all in favor. Motion to appoint Amy Dahmer, coach, girls modified softball, step 5 of the extracurricular index of the WCVTA bargaining agreement effective 2023-22-23 school year. Janine first, Sarah second, all in favor. Motion to appoint Betty Saris, head coach, girls track, step 5 of the extracurricular index of the WCVTA bargaining agreement effective 2022-23 school year. Sarah first. Janine second, all in favor.
Nay.
1 no. Motion to appoint Olivia McNeil, assistant coach, girls track, step 1 of the extracurricular index of the WCVTA bargaining agreement, effective 2022-23. Sarah first, Sean second, all in favor. Motion to appoint Teresa Sanikowski, volunteer assistant coach, girls softball, effective 2022-23 school year. Janine first, Sean second, all in favor. No? All in favor. Sorry.
No, I'm gonna.
You're a yes. Okay, yeah, okay.
Motion to appoint Mike Kerr, volunteer assistant coach, boys baseball, effective 2022-23 school year. Janine first, Sarah second, all in favor. Motion to appoint Nancy Gallagher, substitute teacher, teacher assistant, monitor aide K-12 for the district approved rate sheet effective September 1st, 2023. Shauna first, Sarah second, all in favor. Motion to appoint Julie Purinton, substitute teacher, teacher assistant, monitor aide K-12 for the district approved rate sheet effective September 1st, 2023. Janine first, Sarah second, all in favor. Motion to appoint Nancy Fulmer, substitute teacher, teacher assistant, monitor aide K-12 for the district approved rate sheet effective September 1st, 2023. Janine first, Sarah second, all in favor. Motion to appoint Ruth Bouchard, non-certified substitute teacher, teacher assistant, monitor aide K-12 for the district approved rate sheet effective February 14th, 2023. Shauna first, Janine second, all in favor. Motion to appoint Pam Greco, substitute teacher assistant, monitor aide K-12 for the district approved rate sheet effective February 14th, 2023. Sean first, Sarah second, and all in favor. Motion to appoint Mary Bartlett, substitute food service worker per the CSEA bargaining agreement February 14th, 2023. Sarah first, Sean second, all in favor, and I am abstained. Motion to appoint Nancy Biankowski, substitute food service worker and substitute cleaner for the CSEA bargaining agreement effective February 14th, 2023. Janine first, Sarah second, and all in favor.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to the discussion items, we're up to budget workshop number 3.
Okay, so for tonight, we've got a number of different things associated with the budget. We have a real rough draft for you tonight of revenues and expenditures that we'll be talking about at the end. You have that in front of you. I also provided you with a little more of a clear-cut sheet of our executive budget run right now, so it's just us on it, not comparative to the other districts. I'll take you through tonight a little bit. I want to spend some time on the budget on the UPK transfer from half-day to full day, so you see how that plays into our budget on the sheet itself. And obviously tonight will be about answering any questions you have initially about everything that we talk about, and to kind of take this information with you and absorb it and know that we come back in March, and everybody in here has been through this process. We'll come back in March with a much more finalized budget to take a look at and go through and gather your input. So that'll be kind of the process tonight. Before I even get into all of that though, I want us to take, our administrators to take us through, how they've looked at their budgets this year, what they're looking at in terms of increases, decreases, where we're staying the same, those kinds of things. And again, I don't see a lot, I'll kind of preface our whole discussion tonight, there's not a lot going on in terms of change. We've done a lot over the last few years. A lot of what we're going to be doing in this budget is maintaining the things that we're doing. So with that being said, Mrs. Holmes, can I start with you? Sure. Okay, I'll have Mrs. Holmes start tonight, and we'll talk a little bit about the elementary side of the building where she sees her budget.
So there really aren't any changes, not really adding anything. So this is just a summary of what we've been doing right along. And I just updated it for the 23-24 school year. So our ELA and our math core curriculum, we completed those curriculum maps last year. They go along with the next generation learning standards. And so everything that you see listed there is a continuation from this year. Our kindergarten uses the Terra West, Kinder Phonics, Writing, and Kinder Math. They developed their curriculum map around those. And then we've got the Hegarty for phonemic awareness, and we carry that through to grade 2. Grade 2 uses it more of an intervention, but they use it in kindergarten and first grade daily. And then our 3 through 6 is continuing with the journeys. Grades 1 and 2 are using the journeys for their comprehension and vocabulary pieces. Math, we're sticking with the modules for now. We're looking into some things for grades 1 and 2 that may be coming up in the near future here, maybe next year, maybe the year after, not the 23-24, but the 24-25. They're starting to think that those, they're getting a little bit dated. We've been using them since they've been here, so they haven't really updated them much, so we'll be looking at different programs for that. RTI, we're going to continue with everything we've started. We've talked a lot about the Orton Gillingham. They're really moving forward with that. We're developing a library that we'll put as a teacher resource center, and then the teachers can go in and they can check out the decodable books and the different intervention things that they need to do both in the classroom and the literacy specialists. And then we'll continue on with our summer program, pre-1 through 4. Not sure if we'll be adding pre-K to that now that we're having our regular pre-K be a full-time thing here. But for right now, for the 23-24, we're planning on pre-1 through pre-4 again. And then we will continue the one-on-one intensive intervention for the students that require that. And we will continue the extended day for grades 5 and 6, which we're currently doing. We have added, as Mr. Ray mentioned earlier, a STEM program for our 3rd and 4th graders that will be starting. That's not on here, but if that's successful this year, we'll be continuing it again in the 23-24 school year. And then technology, these are all the things that we're currently using, so there's no updates there. We're going to continue on with the STAR assessments. We use those a lot for data and to kind of track the kids. We've added the reflex math, but we added that this year, and the teachers really enjoy that, so we've got that again for 23-24. That's more of a computation program. And then the keyboarding without tears, Mrs. Main uses that. That's essential right now because we're going to be having those students take the online form of the assessments. We have to prepare them for that. The Reading A to Z is just an extra resource that they use if they need to pull up more instructional materials. And then we use the Edge Elastic Affirm assessments for math in grades 2 through 6. We were using them in grade 1, but it's just too much for them, the online piece. So they're revamping those for the paper pencil for first grade. So it's just going to be 2 through 6 from now on. And then the ClassLink, Parent Square, and Seesaw, we've been using those for the last few years, and they really like those. So we'll continue using those for parent communication, and then the ClassLink for the kids. That's pretty much it. Just a summary of what we've been doing right along. Do you have any questions about any of that? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Broadbent?
So as far as staffing, we're maintaining the same staff as this year. A lot of our stuff that we're doing this year, extra shop assemblies and stuff like that, is funded through the SEP. I'm looking at continuing Parent Square next year. That seems like a good form of communication. For various reasons, the clubs use it, teachers use it, and I think we have 594 people signed up for Parents Here. So it shows that, you know, the parents are looking at it, it's a good form, it's fast, they can put it for digest, so it comes later at the night, but we can override that if it's a message we need to get to them right away. So that's one of the things we're gonna keep with. We'll continue using STAR, as Mrs. Holmes said, for our 7th and 8th graders. You know, it's just another form of assessment on top of state assessments. We bought the VR goggles for the expertise project, so we paid that initial fee, but there is a fee to use that service yearly, so that's something that is new that we'll be working on. As far as classes and curriculum, teachers are working on some of their curriculum maps still. We have advanced wood shop, which is just kind of the second step of current wood shop. If any of your kids were in there, you probably got a cutting board, it came out really nice. But there's gonna be some of those pictures in the newsletter as well, so people can see what we're doing there. We're also bringing a class called Textiles and History, that the kids are gonna be able to take next year. It's gonna talk about different clothing throughout history, the advent of denim, and how they use it as miners, flappers, different stuff like that throughout history. As far as that, everything's kind of status quo as you know, what we're doing this year, no big changes, big purchases or anything like that. Any questions about high school budget, anything new or? No? We're good? Thank you.
Mr. Ray, I'll call you up just quickly. We'll talk, just, the only thing you have left is really we're talking about that equipment replacement. So if you can just cover that, and I'll get to Mr. Doherty.
So we talked last month about possibly going to a 4-seater side-by-side that could also do our needs for bringing people to and from the fields. The problem we have with that is the turning radius. I can't say think about it until after we talked about it. I thought it was a great idea to be able to do two purposes with that machine. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to turn like around our turning radiuses and stuff like that with that machine. So we're gonna have to stick with a 2-seater side by side and either look at the alternatives like we did last year as far as transporting people for the events. So there's a little bit of change there, a little bit of cost savings to go with the 2-seater versus the 4-seater. We also can get a Kubota at that point as a 2-seater. They were more in line. Looks like right now the prices for a Kubota are right around $32,000 with the same attachments that we're looking at with the 4-seater. So that's the only change from last one.
So we received, we generally have a trade-in value of $15,000 right now, right, on the Bobcat?
Yeah, they were gonna confirm that. I had to call them back with the hours and the mileage thing. I'm waiting to hear back from them, but that's what they told me initially. That would be a guaranteed trade-in of that, but we could also try to sell it through Auctions International, which I think we could get a little bit more out of it than that. I talked to Warner's, the place that it came from originally, that Bobcat, and they believe that would be closer to $20,000 with our attachments.
How many hours are on it, you know?
Got just shy of 1,000. I think it was like 974 and 2,800 miles. We actually got quite a few miles on it. Kind of shocked. I didn't think we had that kind of miles.
So I just wanted to update you on that tonight, even though he's kind of already presented on this. Anybody have any questions on that piece? That's the only real significant purchase out of that.
You do both to see if you, what the better deal is?
Yeah, so I priced the Kubota and the Polaris, and they're very similar in cost. However, the Kubota has some options on it that the Polaris doesn't. A lot of lighting, air conditioning and heat. The windows and interior, the cab is different. It's also a diesel, which will save us on some fuel consumption.
No, I meant the trade-in. Can you do both? Can you go through that?
Yeah, so the trade-in, what we would do is we would put ours on Auctions International first and see if it brought more than the trade-in. If it didn't, then we would do the trade. But I don't have a final number on the trade.
If you were locked into one or the other?
Any other questions? Thanks, Mr. Ray. Mr. Doherty?
So as far as the athletics budget is concerned, we didn't look to go out and buy anything that we weren't already buying before, for the most part. There is definitely a little bit more cost, which you had already seen in the uniform replacement plan when we looked at that last month. and that's just to deal with the mascot mandate that we currently have. But you will see that cost savings come back to you because you won't be replacing those uniforms when they naturally come back up in their rotation. Bowling costs are a little bit up. It is our biggest growing program that we have right now. First year our boys have made sectionals and our girls are back-to-back sectional champions. We've got them doing more practices now, which obviously helped with that. But because of that, you do see a little bit more, and bowling costs are going up. If you've taken your family out, it's obviously not as cheap as it used to be. Banner track. This is something I added on. We don't need to do this. Our maintenance crew actually does a great job of getting everything hung up in the gyms, but as you've seen, the vinyl banners kind of evolve as we've gone through. It's been a challenge to get them all straight and everything, and we're in a good place right now, but it is difficult to get them down. And if you ever noticed, they've got boards mounted to the back of them. I had to go to Poland last year with the junior class for the prom thing when they show the, they do the driving while intoxicated thing and the. Anyways, while I'm there, I was looking around their brand new gym, and they have this stuff mounted up on the walls that's almost like outside of our elementary classrooms, where they have the peg boards up there, and you can pin the kids' artwork up. But it's called Banner Track, and it's a system, and it has actual screw-in knobs that hang your banners up. And so they just go up with the Genie, they unscrew it, bring the banner down. So it's really nice, and it would make it easier. So that's added in there. Again, what we're doing already kind of works. If we want to take it to the next step, you know what I mean, we can go ahead. I got a quote for that, and that's in the budget. So that's like a couple $1,000s, which again, we don't need to do it, but I think in the long run, I don't see you going away from vinyl banners anytime, so I think it would be a good idea. The other thing that is going to be an additional cost this year is John Rathbun retired from Section 3 Athletics. And Section 3 is looking to move that, I don't know if Mr. Shepard already told you guys this, but they're basically looking to create this as a BOCES position now, the Executive Director for Section 3. And the reason that they're doing that is because nobody with any athletic experience is going to leave their position, be the Executive Director, because you're getting out of the retirement system. So the idea is if they create this position through BOCES, not only could you get somebody with some experience, but then you can run that through a BOCES COSER, and all these schools can pay in. So they could be competitive with their pricing, and it would actually be cheaper for the schools. Now, where it's not cheaper for us is year one. Like you're all familiar with the bus when we talked about going to one run and all that stuff before. You pay that money up front year one. So instead of $3,000 for dues, our first year would be like $6,000. But once your state aid generates on that the next year, we would actually be paying less money than we currently are right now. So there is an upfront cost, which is reflected in my budget this year for the first year. And then the only other thing on there that's an additional cost is football helmets. So our yearly helmet replacement plan, we buy 6 new helmets every year. They're used for 10 years. We recondition them, but our numbers are up. Our modified numbers are up. We hadn't had a program for 2 years. Then we came out, we had 27 kids this year. Pop Warner was kind enough to loan us 5 helmets to get through, but we added 5 additional helmets onto that. So normally we wouldn't be buying 11 helmets in a year because they are quite expensive. They're almost $500 a piece. Yeah, really expensive. But in order to be safe and make sure you have the numbers, because if you don't order now, you definitely won't be able to get them because there's such a shortage on helmets. So those are the big things there. And then the other one was hurdles, which I know there was a question about. We bought some new hurdles last year. And the reason that we're buying new hurdles now is because when we bought the original hurdles, back when I started doing this, I think I came in the second year of the hurdle replacement plan then, our track was not the track that we have now. So once we went and got this new track and we got the 8 lanes and we're able to host these giant events, the hurdles that we had are slightly too wide for what we were doing out there. So the hurdles that we have are still good. So when we do our normal meets here at school with 2 or 3 other schools, they're spaced out and everything's fine. But when we do the giant competitions, you need 80 hurdles out there, so they all have to be side by side, and they are slightly too wide, and the officials were giving us a very hard time about that. But because our facility is so nice, I think we're going to continue hosting all these events and everything, so this would be nice to continue having this until you got up to your set of 80. We wouldn't be looking to get rid of the other ones that we have. They're still great for practices. They're still great for the dual meets that we do. But this would allow us to continue hosting these big events for sectionals, or eventually if we ever get to the point where we start hosting some invitationals here too. That's all I have. Any questions?
Where do we store them all?
Currently, they're underneath the pavilion out there with all the picnic tables. So, but then once they go from there, they're over in the corner where the shot put is. And they all they nest together, so they all fold in, they don't actually take up a ton of space. But the nice thing about them is that they're fiberglass. That's the reason we had to do this in the first place, because the old hurdles that we had years ago, they were all wood and they were rotting away and everything, so these will last for a long, long time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so I want to turn our attention to a few sheets that I handed you. One of them looks like this. It's a sheet of our executives. Wasn't in your packet. I handed it out to you tonight. The sheet that's related to our executive budget for us here. I want to talk a little bit about what you're going to see in this. It's not any different than what I put in your packet. It's just a little bit easier to read than the original one that has all the schools on it. So if you look at this, and this is as simple as it gets in terms of where our money is. That top line, the foundation aid, and you'll see what our foundation aid is. You'll see that our projected aid increase for this year is $239,882, which is a 3% increase. Okay, that is the minimum that the state can give you right now. Okay, you're going to hear terms like held harmless and things like that on the news when the budgets come out. What's going on right now is the schools that they have determined were underfunded for many, many years are getting all of that money back. The schools that were funded accurately, like they believe in terms of West Canada Valley, are being held harmless, which means that they are basically giving us 3%, so that we're not, because if they didn't do that, they're saying we actually would be looking at a reduction in aid because of the money that we were, they'll use the term overpaid. I don't like to use that term, but that's the term that they would use. So essentially, we're in that boat. I believe this is the last year of that. Am I right with that, Ms. Crossett? I believe this is the last year of that, and then next year, everybody's on the same playing field across the state. So I don't know what the foundation aid increases will be next year. This is a pretty much a guaranteed number. So I mentioned this to you last month. This executive budget is more accurate than I would normally say. Normally we'd come in here and say, this is the executive budget, I would expect this to go up. I don't know if it'll go up. This might be exactly what we're getting here. Who knows, maybe we will. What I can tell you is we're not getting any less than $239,882 in terms of increase. So that's 3%. So as you look down through, you'll see all the different aids, the transportation aid, you'll see the building aid on there, that's on there. You'll see the BOCES aid that's on there. And as you continue down, all the different revenue sources that we have in terms of software aid, library materials, textbook, hardware and technology, and so forth. We don't have full day kindergarten conversion because we already have full day. But then I want to draw your attention down at the bottom, and we've been talking about this, the universal pre-kindergarten aid. So last year, we got $92,399. That's generally the area of money that we've been getting with our half-day UPK. So the reason we're able to upgrade ourselves to the full-day UPK next year is where you see that number going up 190.5%. So we are at $268,401, which is $176.02 increase, which allows us to fund that. We only have access to that money if we go to full day. Okay, otherwise you go back to that 90. So if we stayed status quo, they'd give us our 90 and we'd be half day. This allows us, by converting, to have that sort of money, and that will be the consistent revenue source pending increases that occur down the road to support our UPK. So I wanted you to be aware of that. In addition to that, we are, and a whole bunch of us in here are working on this grant that's associated with the conversion. So we are eligible for a conversion rate from half day to full day, which could equal upwards of $200,000 in addition to this. And where that's going to come into play is we've got some work to do to convert our classrooms over to pre-K classrooms. So right now, we have BOCES service that has a UPK classroom with their materials and so forth. So we're going to have to really start from the beginning with our UPK rooms. We've mentioned the buses that are associated with that, and the seats that we have to put into those buses, and the cost of those types of things. That's where that money is going to come into play. So that gets submitted on Friday, and then however long we wait to hear to see if we have that. But I want you to be aware that we have a guarantee of $268,401 And there's a potential for an additional $200,000 that we're gonna be able to potentially access if we're awarded that grant. So, you know, our fingers are crossed that we'll be able to, but my hope is that there's a lot of incentive for schools that are in the half day to convert to full day, so we'll be able to do that.
Is the turnaround on that grant rather quickly, so you know?
Yeah, them giving us the grant to get it in is rather quick too. They ended the question and answer period at the end of January and they wanted it in by this Friday, and it's an extensive grant. I don't like it, just so you know. So I've been working, I don't like it at all. I feel like I'm doing a college report, so Mrs. Holmes won't do what I ask. So, Mrs. Holmes doesn't want me to be her college partner. I always just pass things over there. You get this one.
So this is a one-time payment of this, and then what in the future?
Yeah, so this will help us convert over and get us set up, and then, yeah, after that, the one you see on the aid rod is what we would get every single year, support program. So this number here will fully support our staffing and the program itself. What the grant is gonna help us with is some of the things we can really jump right in. If we get that grant, we can get everything done. Like, we'd like to do all the bus seats. So if we can get all the money to do all the bus seats and get, 3 rows of bus on every bus with the car seat into them, that gives us some flexibility, and if the money's there to do that, we'll do that. If we don't get all the money, then we may have to reduce that and limit the buses that we do that and cut that cost down. We might have to cut down on, how many buses we use. We'll factor that in. And that number and that extra grant really pertains to the enrollment. So we've got to do a good job here of recruiting and getting enrollment into our pre-K program, because if, our number is based on 36 to 40 kids, which is the max for 200 and something thousand. If we only get 20 kids or 23 kids, then we're only going to get that grant money in with that type of enrollment. Now, we're hoping, based on the changes from our pre-K numbers to our kindergarten numbers each year, which has grown, that gap has grown, that we're not getting all of the pre-K kids that we need to before they get to kindergarten. So we're really hoping that enrollment will go up. We'll start to advertise that really soon. The registration for both kindergarten and UPK will be in March, and we'll inform all the parents and get that information out to them, the logistics of it. There'll be drop-offs. As I talked about in the past, the morning will still be a parent drop-off, but the afternoon will be transportation home at 1:30, so we'll be able to bring the kids home at that point in time. So we've got all those logistics into play that we'll share with the parents and see, and then we'll see what doesn't fit for our parents too. So one of the goals of this is to be more accommodating to parents who have UPK kids, and the setup we currently have doesn't fit everybody's lifestyle at this point. So we've got to do some things. We'll evaluate that. They'll start a little earlier than our elementary, but they'll go home a little earlier than our elementary. So that's kind of how the alternate schedule will work. We have the ability to do that. We have to monitor the bus, so remember, on every one of those buses that we have in pre-K, we have to have 2 adults on there. So we've got to figure out situations to do that. That's where the afternoon comes into play for us. And you've got 2 other runs that we're running as well. So the funding for the runs, the money, if we can fit these into the grants as well, those will all be, bonus things that we can do. So that's the biggest thing I wanted to talk about in terms of the run, kind of give you an idea of what the increase is for this year in the executive run, and to kind of highlight the UPK and the increase that we have in that area. Does anybody have any questions on the executive portion of the run in the sheet I gave you today in the UPK?
Pre-K.
Yes, sir.
Suppose you get 50.
Yeah. Yeah.
2 classes, 3 classes?
Yeah, so anything, so you're maxed out.
How's it gonna work?
So you're maxed out at 18, okay, for a UPK by that. So
Okay.
so the most you could have if we had 2 classrooms is 36. They will let you get a waiver for 20 in each room, but we would have to add another adult, so it'd be 3 adults if you get to that. If we go above 40, then, we haven't talked about that, so I don't know, we can't let them in.
Do we max?
Do we max out? Do we split? Do we have, I don't see us having 3 classrooms. I don't see that happening, but it's a good question. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. We're looking at 2 full-day pre-K and hoping that number falls.
2 full day.
2 full-day,
So
yeah.
about probably 30, thinking 36, 18 in each one,
I would
right?
love that.
Yeah.
That would be
Okay.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we can get
Does
36.
this program, are you, because I know in other pre-Ks, like you have an early 3-year-old that turns 4 quick, but can they do it twice? Or is it just 1 year and then they'd have to go
Just
elsewhere?
1 year, and then they have to go to kindergarten. And because
Unless the
it's still a
parent wanted
uni-
them to go.
Right, it's still universal pre-K, so we don't have any control of that. We can't retain them in pre-K. We can retain them in kindergarten if we want to, and they can do 2 years of kindergarten. But as far as that goes, we have to follow the age, so they can't do 2 years voluntarily here.
Here, but they can do 1 and then go outside.
They can go
and
to a
come back.
private if they wanna go for another year, yeah. But again, it would have to be the year before, because once they hit that age where they qualify for kindergarten, I can't put them in pre-K, regardless of where they went before.
Okay,
Once they hit that age for kindergarten legally, I have to put them in a kindergarten
right,
classroom.
okay.
That does it, because you're gonna have 3-year-olds in there.
You will, yes.
Yeah, as long as they, as long as
Just
they
so
turn-
you know,
I
they're gonna be 3.
Thank you.
As long as they turn 4 before December 1st.
You're gonna be 3-year-olds every
Are
day.
you subbing in pre-K?
We would need a sub for the pre-K.
How you wanna sign up?
No.
Okay, so that's part one. Any other questions on the executive run, the foundation aid increase, the 3%, the UPK increase, anything else on there that you have questions about at this point? Okay, so with me nudging her to get this stuff on paper for you tonight, we have 2 papers in front of you that I handed out to you that were in the packet that we put together. Now, one of them is your appropriations, the other one is your revenue. All right, the single sheet is that, the appropriations is the packet. Again, these are side-by-sides from last year's budget numbers to projected numbers for 23-24. I'm gonna have Ms. Cross to take you through this. Understand that there's some numbers that are really, really rough here, or just kind of guesses at this point. We don't have BOCES numbers, we don't have health insurance numbers yet. And that's all typical for February, we have those usually by March. But it'll give you a little bit of an idea of where we're at. So generally, Cal, can you take us through the appropriations first? I think that's where we'll start, where the money's going, and then we'll talk about where it's coming from.
I've highlighted anything that's a salary, I put it on there, that's a contractual thing that we have numbers for, that we have set. Anything that I didn't highlight didn't change from what we had last year, or changed minorly. If you go down to page 3. The top one that I noted is the salaries. The next one is a significant increase in the water testing. But that is because we had to change labs. The lab we were using, that's this one, the one that we handed out tonight.
Got it.
Page 3 we're on.
Thank you.
The second one that I've noted on there is the laboratory fees for our water testing. The lab we were using closed, so we had to go to a different lab, and their fees were higher than what we had in the first lab. Down towards the bottom where the fuel costs are, we under budgeted that this year, so we're going to be short. I upped it, hoping that the fuel costs level out. The next line is the salaries, and then the utility vehicle that Mr. Ray was explaining about. I put in there for an increase in that. Top of page 4, the increase on the third line down is for the second SRO for a full year. Put 60,000 in there, carrying off the first one. The admin, BOCES admin costs, 301,000. That's a number BOCES did give us. They gave us the admin and the capital numbers, but we don't have their actual program numbers yet. The next one down is a significant one. That is the payment for our first payment on the BOCES capital project. That is $933,000 is the first payment that is due in July. There is a corresponding revenue on the revenue side of 77% that we're theoretically supposed to get back in the first year. So hopefully by June, we'll make this payment in July, and hopefully by June, we will have BOCES paid to offset 77% of that payment. So we're meeting Thursday of them on the bottom of that page are just salaries, contractual salaries. The next page is all salaries that I've noted on here. And like Mr. Shepherdson said, I don't have numbers for the BOCES stuff yet, the program part of it. I have rough numbers for materials and supplies. I haven't actually gone through all the requisitions completely yet. Page 6 is all salary, the rest of, most of everything else that is increased in here is just salaries. Until we get down to page 8 at the bottom. Those are increase for the banners that we hang out on the street, of seniors. Top of the next page is the rental for the tent and the chairs for all the ceremonies that we're doing outside now. And then about halfway down that page, you'll see an increase in the uniforms for the athletics. That was directly due to the logo.
Can I go back to the tent and chairs for
Sure.
1 second?
Mhm.
How come that's going up so much?
We didn't budget for the whole amount last year, because we got a bigger tent and
Okay.
chairs that we weren't anticipating. Uniform logo, the logos for the uniforms, and the regular replacement schedule. Page 10 is the fuel costs for the transportation. I increased that, and again, hopefully it will level off so that we're not paying quite so much. And the bottom of that page is where the benefits start. I don't have solid numbers on any of those yet. I have the retirement numbers, but I haven't calculated them yet. And the health insurance, I won't get that number until March with the percentage increases. Down towards the bottom is the bond payments. Our construction bond dropped $400,000 this year because of the refunding of the bonds that we did 2 years ago. And on the school bus purchases, that went up because of the cost of buses. That's it. Any questions?
So right now, I do, so right now, only because we're just getting into the initial portions of this. We're looking just on this first draft at a budget increase of what percent?
We did a percentage, it's 1.2 million.
Okay.
We didn't actually calculate the percentage.
Okay. So again, this is just eyeball stuff for today, to give you ideas. We're throwing this together as our first draft of this. So, Kelly and I have not sat down and even gone through everything in this. We're still lacking a lot of numbers, but I always like to, in February, give you an idea of what we're working off of to start, including the executive budget numbers and any of the numbers that we have up till this point, and so forth in there.
Well, the overall increase is 1.2, and 900,000 of that is the capital project.
Correct. So that's, yes. So the BOCES, and we'll go through the revenue in a second, the BOCES, that'll be something I'll talk about when we present our budget, once we finalize it and approve it here, and we're gonna present it to the public. There'll have to be some clarification to everybody so they understand how the BOCES project fits into this in the first year, and then how it rolls with revenue from there on as we move forward. So I'll talk a lot more about that as we get closer. But with that being said, I just want to kind of switch over to the revenue side, let Kelly take you through that a little bit.
It's a 6% increase overall, 1.5 of it is actual power increases, the rest of it is because of those.
Okay.
On the revenue side, I left the tax levy up at 0 for right now. Only changes on here, the wind power pilot thing, that went up a little bit. And then down towards the bottom, you'll see the aid based on the runs that we've gotten so far. And then on that BOCES aid, capital project aid, that's where the 77% of, it's actually 77% of 91% of our payment, because we have to apply it to the aided portion of our payment. And the BOCES project is projected to be 91% aided. So we get 77%
the biggest piece of that is you'll see in the BOCES aid going from 1.2 to 2.1. There's your increase in revenue that we talked about in terms of your reimbursement. So with BOCES projects, as we talked about when this was all being presented, unlike our own projects that we get aid on the following year, with a BOCES project, that aid generates right away. So project starts, we make a payment, we get that back in the same, theoretically, we get that back in the same calendar year.
I did a preliminary tax cap calculation. Again, it's gonna, the meeting that we're having Thursday will kind of solidify that a little more. At present, our allowable tax cap is 6.8%. We can increase up to 6.8% without having to have a supermajority vote.
So can you explain just a little bit to them why our number would fluctuate like that, just where that comes from?
Strictly because of the capital project at BOCES. It gives us higher exclusions that we can take off of last year's numbers. So it's a one-time thing. Next year it'll up back out to be probably around 2%. Because we can take out, we can add in and take out the taxpayer's portion of the projects. And because of the capital project at BOCES, we can add in more that puts our tax cap up. It's a calculation that's this long, 47 numbers.
Yeah, can you demonstrate it on the whiteboard? No.
So, just to kind of recap all that, again, the materials that we provided tonight are the draft for you to take with you and just kind of go over, and obviously this will be, both of these will be updated even further next month when we come in to this. But, you know, a couple just, and I mentioned this already, a couple weird things about it for this year. The BOCES project's gonna be in there, we'll have to sell that because it's gonna look like we got this gigantic increase, but we really don't. We really, in this initial draft, we're at like 1 point something% for our own stuff, but it's a little bit higher, you know, another 5% for the BOCES, and then we'll talk about the revenue we're getting in return for that. So it'll look like an increase in the budget, but also understand that our revenues have gone up on the other side of that, with that. So we've had all of our, you know, our administrative meetings and our proposals. As I mentioned, we're trying to maintain what we're doing right now for this budget. That's kind of been our theme internally. And, you know, we're gonna, between now and next month, and then into April, you know, we work to try to manage those and see where we can, you know, cut costs and do some different things without eliminating things. So that's kind of where we're at in February with the budget at this point in time. Does anybody have any initial questions tonight on where we are with our budget right now?
I want to go back to Mrs. Holmes. Are we going to replace Mrs. Perigin?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're keeping that position open, and we're gonna replace her.
Okay, because it said no proposals for staff, new staff.
The position, we're just keeping it open.
Okay.
So she's
All right.
leaving and we're gonna replace it, but it's not a new position created, it's her position.
All right. Thank you.
When we get closer, we'll be able to provide the analysis that you do year to year on tax increase.
Yep, we'll go through that, what we've had over, yep, that'll be next month, I'll have all that. Ms. Crossan just got that number today, so, and she's gotta verify it at the end of the week, because that's what we think it is right now. So we'll verify that, and then I'll kind of go over with the, you know, the historical, that's what you're talking about, right, the historical data? Yep, sure will.
Any other questions?
Again, what I would encourage everybody, as we always do, just take your time, go through that, keep that, look through that, we'll update it. If I have any information to add to it, I'll add that to that, and then hopefully next month we'll have a little bit more concrete numbers to look at and go from there.
Good on that?
I am afraid to answer this.
Capital project update.
Okay, so we had a lot with the project between our, we had a really good discussion, I thought, last month on our project. We've had multiple meetings between last month's board meeting and this board meeting. I wanna draw your attention to this sheet here, which is the sheet that looked like last month that was in your packets. Kind of relates to what's in, what's out, and what's being bid as alternates. So through our discussion last month, and we had, you know, a lot of pros and cons to a lot of different things here. You know, I sort of got the sense that we needed to take a look at how many things we could actually get done in this project, and how that could happen. So on the sheet you have presented to you, you'll see on the top of this in blue, all the things that have been kept into the project now, that we were able to move some things around. You then will see everything that's in yellow here, is located as the bid alternates, that will be bid in this initial bidding. What you see on the bottom are the following items that have been removed from the project. What those include are the site work bleachers and the elementary air conditioning. Now I want to caution when I say out. So I'm going to talk about phase 2 of the project as we discussed last month, and the movement of those bleachers over to the other phase and taking it out of the initial phase of this, which freed up you know, about $500,000. I also want to draw your attention to the air conditioning, which is just under $500,000 that is out for right now. So what would happen in this situation under this current graph is a couple different things. One, we're going to bid all of the alternates that are there. We're going to see how those bids come in. If there is money available for us throughout this project where we can go back to and revisit the air conditioning, and we have money to do that, or do some of that with, then we would bid that separately, because we now have money to bid that, and that's something that we would discuss if we wanted to do. In addition to that, we've also started to explore some alternate ideas. So if for some reason the bids didn't come in, or the work didn't come in where we wanted it to be, and we didn't necessarily have the money to do the air conditioning, we are starting to explore some portable alternate plans in terms of moving portable air conditioners into rooms during the hotter months, where we can help to alleviate some of the heat that's in those rooms, which is obviously not ideal, but it's significantly cheaper to do those types of things. All right, so for example, for between $400 and $500, you can get a larger portable with a classroom size in there that we could use. Now, the negative part of the portables, and I don't want to get too much into that part of the discussion, but the negative part is you're fighting your current HVAC system, because you're bringing in another piece that's not connected to that. So while you're trying to draw humidity out of the room with portable, you're bringing in outside humid air, because we've got to bring in outside air through the HVAC system. So if you did that for a long time, that would create a lot of issues, like mold, different things like that. You also have the emptying of the water and things like that that are associated with portables. What the value of the portables is that if we're using certain rooms and so forth, we can move those around, we can order a lot of them so that we have those and so forth. Again, just exploring other ideas. The key piece to this, though, that I want you to understand is on paper right now, you know, the air conditioning is on the outlying piece of it. What that did for you is allowed you to bring a whole bunch of stuff back into the project that was out in the last month's discussion, or at least bring it into the alternates, which we're confident that everything you see in blue and yellow will get done with a successful bid. All right, and a lot of our people are confident that that can happen. What will be left is the question part, okay? So that's where we are with this, and we're kind of at the point now with this project where, you know, we've got to be good with this or make the last final adjustment tonight, because I have to call them tomorrow and let them know how this discussion went tonight, because we are anticipating some answers from SED in terms of approval. All of that will move really quickly, and we're still on track as of our meeting this morning to bid all of this in March. So keep in mind what would happen then if this paper looked like we wanted to move forward with it after tonight. Keep in mind that the alternates and the keep-in items that are on here will be bid in March. The items that are on the other side of that, the bleachers and the air conditioning, would not be bid in March. Doesn't mean they're not going to happen. Just means they won't be bid initially. Questions, concerns? And let me just reiterate that if anything were to move out of that keep out, you got two significant numbers there and they were brought back in, we'd have to correspond that with alternates and ins out, because it's just dollar for dollar now is where we're at. Any questions, comments, concerns, anything with this sheet?
I'm good.
I think the conversation we had last time kinda, I'm good.
You know, we worked through it, but in the end, I think as we got through some things, and I'm not saying everybody, I didn't feel, I don't think anybody's happy about anything being out. That's a key point of this. You know, you propose the project, you try to do everything you can, and you just gotta go, and numbers are what they are. So, you know, and when you look at the items that we have on the list, you know, that's kind of what we do. We kind of prioritize that, and hopefully, we're able to do all of this. I'll talk about phase 2 in a second. But yeah, you know, that's where we're at. Any questions on that? Okay.
Well, I do, I
Yes.
guess thinking about this, I do. If we don't have enough money, if we do the alternates,
Yep.
and then we don't have enough money for the air conditioning,
Yep.
and we do portables or whatever, what do we do? Do we have a list in case we have extra money?
Do we have a list? Say that again, I didn't follow you.
Or are we gonna do something else if we have money left over? We don't have enough money for the air conditioning.
Oh, do we have
but-
things that aren't on this
Yes.
list? I don't believe so, but I can look into that if there were things that were discussed that never made it into the initial part of the project. I don't think so, though. I think we've gotten everything, because that was a real focus in the initial design of this, was to get everything we could that needed to be done in this thing. And so this includes all the painting, everything we talked about, the scaffolding, all the things that kind of had, you know, odd numbers to us. That's got everything in here, either as an alternate or as a keeper. So
So if we have money left over, then what do we do?
Right.
that would be us coming back to the table to talk about.
Okay.
Yep, yep.
You're
that's
saying
all.
like, what if we have like 150,000,
Right,
but we don't
yeah.
have enough for the air?
So that's with any project, so when we come back and we got 150,000, we come back to the table and we say, okay, what do we wanna do here? Like last project, we said, you know what, we did all this work over in the elementary, they need new desks, so we did desks. So sometimes you do non-ratable things. That's the one thing about the AECs, when you buy those, that's straight cash. Even if we put them in the project, you said, okay, we're gonna buy portables, those wouldn't be aidable items like the systems would be. So, you know, those are a balance with things that are aidable, but that always happens. Inevitably, there's money left in the project always. And sometimes boards will say, you know what, we don't need to spend it on it. Just the project came in less, that's another option. So, that's down the road a little bit, but that's how that would work. Did that answer your question?
Yep.
Yep. Any other questions on that? Okay, so you were given, and again, in that same packet, on the staple packet, you can see in there, it also breaks it down to you where the alternates are, a little more of descriptions of all the different items that we've gone over several times that are in this project. Now, the other sheet that I gave you today is this blue sheet, which is a financial spread. It looks like the one I gave you last month. Yours is gray, sorry, mine's colored. Trying to save. So yours is gray, but it's basically the financial spreadsheet of the phase 2 portion. So one of the things that changed from last month's phase 2 description to this month is you've added the bleachers into phase 2. So where that was out of the first part, we then kind of combine that in with us and the donation portion of the project. So I want you to look kind of at the left-hand side of where you see 2025. So you'll see the donation listed at $500,000 right in that first column of that. And as you go across that, you will see the numbers, the 3.6 that the project is brought up to, and again, that's the high side of the number. And you go all the way across and you'll see the net local share is 0. That's the advantage, as I've talked about for several months, of you essentially with a donation now have the money you need up front to start a project that can be aided the rest of the way. Otherwise, if you wanted to do that, you would have to come up with $500,000 out of your reserve or general fund that's there. So that's what's jump starting this whole potential for this for you. And as you go down through, you'll see through 2040 how that project diminishes down through. The biggest piece that everybody wants to know is what's the net local share. So if you look over on the right-hand column, you'll see starting in 2026, you will see the projected numbers that would be in the budget each year, which would be part of our budget, all the way down through. On the bottom of it, you'll see the average yearly is $18,923. And what that would mean is basically with bleachers, with everything you're getting, it would be 0.37% of the budget. So, you know, 1/3% is what the local share, am I saying that right? Of the levy, yes. So, again, all this kind of always looks funny, but again, when you do projects like we're doing with phase 1 and phase 2 of this, the deal that you get in terms of your upgrading of facilities and things like that, in terms of the aid you get back, and then you double down on that with a donation, a generous donation that you receive. This gives you an opportunity outside to do that. Now, the other piece that I've mentioned several times is the other opportunity you have is you're already in the project. So you've already got architects, you've already got project managers, you got everybody in place that you normally would have to contract with if you wanted to do this as a separate project down the road somewhere. You obviously likely wouldn't have a $500,000 in a donation to work with to start. There's just a lot of things that play into your piece here. What isn't playing into the situation is the speed of it. So we really want to get this started the following summer. So if we move forward and it's approved by the voters, to get that work done the following summer, which would be the summer of 2024, our project, phase 1 would start this summer, 2023. This would carry over along with some of the phase 1 into the next summer. We have to move really fast. And what they're moving on is the seeker and getting all of that stuff situated right now. One of the interesting parts of the environmental review right now is the fact that you have an eagle habitat here now. So the eagles across the street are being evaluated, and when you're putting lights into the potential of putting lights into a field, that all has to be taken into account. So I'm learning a lot about this now. So not going to be an issue, we don't believe, but it's a DEC part of this. You know, we'll have to justify that the lights aren't on all the time. It's not going to mess with their night patterns, that the lights are directly on the field and they're not projecting out, and all these kinds of things. So I'm just giving you, because you may hear some of that as we talk through this. We talked about that today. So that's one of the key pieces of the environmental review here that we're doing is the fact. I think it's kind of nice you have eagles, but they are part of this now.
Wow.
So in case you don't know where they are, they're across the street on the bend there. So that's where,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
right where we make the bend. So, so that's that part of it. Once that goes through, we would move really quickly with all the other paperwork and so forth. A lot of this stuff is prepped already to be done, the designs and different things. There's only a little bit of work to do. So in order to keep this on track, this would have to be presented and voted on by May, which means this would be an additional item on the May budget vote, is what we'd be looking at with this. So in between there, we'd have a budget presentation, I'd have a project phase 2 presentation, and then there'd be 3 different items to vote on: the budget, the bus, and the phase 2 in May. If all of those, well, I'll just focus on the project, but if phase 2 passes in May, then we'd start moving forward and you'd be bidding again for that, just like we are this year in March, same kind of thing. Next February, March, you'd be bidding, and then you'd be working forward into 2024. So that's where we are at from our discussion from last month. The only change to everything was us pulling the bleachers out so that we could get some more things done in phase 1 and moving it over to the donation portion of the project, which obviously on paper makes sense as we're doing that stuff that's outside. So, you know, I'm not gonna lie, as I look at this and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, all this stuff. But when it comes out on numbers and the numbers just don't lie, this is an opportunity and a great deal for you. I mean, if that's the direction you want to go in. I mean, I guarantee you're not going to get a better deal than this at any point in time. So it's kind of like can we do it now or don't do it at all? You know, and I know there'll be different opinions on that, and I get both sides of that. But as I've said before, I think my job is to present everybody with opportunities that are here, and then kind of decide from there. Is there any questions on any of this right now? Okay, I will give our project team the go-ahead tomorrow morning, and we'll continue to move forward.
Moving on now to talk about the mascot update.
Okay, so since last month, or the last few months, I have not gotten any updates or any sort of additional information from the State Education Department, any different than what I've already talked about. What I do know is that there's going to be pieces of things that we will start to phase, and we've talked about this in the past. Right now, our focus is on meeting the mandate and progressing toward the mandate itself. Our discussion right now is not about new mascots and so forth. And I want to reiterate that because I don't want anybody that's listening tonight or anybody here to feel like we're creating a mascot without including people. And we've talked about that as a board here as well. That's just not what we're talking about now. When that comes around, if and when that comes around, that we're going to do that, we're going to have a whole plan in progress or a process in place to do that. But what I do know is I need to, continue to move forward with the mandate. One of the initial things that gets put forth is the digital pieces of this, which aren't a cost item to that. So on our websites, on our board out front, our digital boards, those kinds of things, starting to move forward with removing. And what I'm hearing in some of my meetings is a lot of schools have started that process because it's a good thing in terms of you're reporting to state that you've done something. So not everybody's gonna be able to do everything all at once and so forth, but the digital pieces are things that we can do without cost and so forth. So I put in and again, I'm really open for discussion, but I put into your packets this, which is, essentially a WCV, which is what we're talking about, that we're West Canada Valley and this is that. This is the symbol we use on a lot of different things in terms of our athletics. This picture in particular is what we put on our helmets now. But we also have it on a number of different things that we put on. It's kind of like something that's grown over time with some of the things when we write WCV. So when I have things on our website where we have the mascot listed, this would replace that. So it would say WCV. On our sign out front, it would say WCV. It would look like that. On our athletics portions of our website, it would say WCV like that. So I guess my question, down at BOCES, where they have, where we have us represented as part of Herkimer BOCES, this would be our thing that would be down there on their signs and on their stuff inside their places, BOCES. If and when you decided on, the community decided on a different or a new mascot, then this would be easily able to be changed out and so forth. For this, I'm not talking about this being on anything that we'd have to replace later on. This is just merely a placeholder for now as we move forward. So with that being said, I'm hoping, through discussion that I could do some of this as we move on in the next few months and start to use this a little bit if everybody thinks this looks okay as our WCV.
Did you see it?
You
gotta do what you gotta do.
Okay.
Well, my one thing is, we do not have a mascot. A mascot is an animal or a person that represents something.
Yep.
We have a logo.
Yep.
That's it. That's, I mean,
Right,
that's fine.
the
Yep.
logo.
Yep.
But we don't have a mascot.
Yep. Understood.
Is there a school that's suing? I was told that somebody's suing the governor because she doesn't have the power or something to do this or that. Is it
So-
Cambridge or something?
Yeah, so Cambridge is the center of this. They started, their initial piece and their board and so forth, and they had a lot of internal things that went with that. And then state education got involved with them specifically with this, and they basically ordered them that they had to do this. They appealed that and they lost their appeal. So to everybody else, that was kind of the end of the line for everybody. Like, once the appeal was lost, even our own legal is saying, listen, I can do anything you want, but I'd be stealing your money. Right now, that appeal's already been lost. Everybody who appeals it is just giving money to lawyers, and they're gonna reject the appeals. Now, with that being said, I don't know about that part of it. Like, I don't know if there's another step with specific lawsuits that could, you never know with things. I mean, you see in the Supreme Court how things can overturn after many years of being in place. So I'll never say never, but as of right now, I don't see any variable in that at this point in time.
Is everybody okay that it's football oriented? You know what I mean? Is it?
Can you
Well,
just take that away?
example is-
It's not though, like.
No, I know, but I'm just like, I'm
You-
looking at flag,
Do you think, what makes it football oriented? Because I showed you the helmet.
No, just that you said that that's what football's used.
They put it on their helmet because they liked the way it looked on the
No,
helmet.
right, but it's like, you know, I don't wanna just be, well, this is football and
No, it's on Schedule Galaxy.
Yeah, it's on Schedule
That's
Galaxy.
on
We use it in a
Schedule
lot of
Galaxy.
places.
That's where I
Yeah.
saw it first,
Yeah.
actually.
I just wanted to show you what it looked like on there. It's like.
Yeah, no, I'm not, no,
yeah.
it's not that.
It's not a football thing, for sure.
Okay.
It's a-
I
it's
didn't
just an
want
athletics.
anybody to be felt left
Yeah,
out.
I think
or-
Mr. Doherty, you got it on some
I
stuff.
think it's
correct,
on a
already?
couple jackets and stuff.
Yeah.
It's on some jackets.
It's,
It's actually been my email handle for a while, my icon picture, and
I
it is
kinda
on Schedule
like
Galaxy
it.
now, so.
A little straight, black lettering. But I
It's
gotta-
tiny, but you
I
can-
like that.
Yeah.
As long as
Okay,
it's
so
purple.
we're good with using that.
Yep, okay, thank you, everybody.
One thing I thought of when, 'cause you were mentioning we have to take our Indian off of our website.
Yep.
But like boosters and all of
They all
the
have to go
WCD
too.
Parent Football Club, all of them have it too, so.
Yeah, so as they move forward with things, they'll produce things that'll be not associated with that as well. You know what I mean, as they move forward. Understanding that we have a lot of history of that type of resource that everybody in the room has, so. But yeah, moving forward, they would have to do that as well.
Okay. Two policies.
Okay. Yeah.
Policy 5660.
Yeah, so I'll take you through these pretty quick. So the federal nutrition, when we get, it's great, we have free lunch and everything, but they come in to look at everything we're doing with our free lunch and so forth, and our policies and so forth. So one of the recommendations, if we look at 5660, you'll see the highlighted areas throughout this on the 2023 update. These are all things that have to be included in any school's policy if you are participating in the federal school lunch program, which is what we're doing in there. So I'm not going to necessarily, this is all just regular stuff. I can answer any questions you have, but I certainly wouldn't want to, read to everybody in here. But this gives you an idea of all the different things that we have to include in our policy to update it, to make sure this is in there as we participate and move forward with this. So, and again, I think everything in here is pretty straightforward in this policy. We met with them. We're doing a good job. We gotta lower some salt in some places, but we're all right. Does anybody have any questions on this policy?
Okay. Motion to waive the second reading of policy 5660, meal charging and prohibition against meal shaming. Sean first, Sarah second, and all in favor? Motion to adopt policy 5660, meal charging and prohibition against meal shaming. Shauna first, Janine second, all in favor? Policy 5661.
Yep, so the wellness policy, we have one, but again, as they go through it, look through, they make recommendations for updates to that. We have that put in place in 16. You'll look at the updated 2023 of 8 pages that are in here. This is basically everything that they would like to see in the wellness policy, most of which we already had. But you'll see a few little minor highlighted items in there. I think this is the one that also has things that are low in sodium, and a couple things that they didn't like with too much salt in, I guess. So those have got to be in there and so forth. But other than that, every district has to have a wellness policy. We have to advertise, our programs that we have, and we have to promote nutrition and positive nutrition and so forth. And all of that needs to be in our wellness policy and so forth. So, again, standard required wellness stuff that's in here for this policy.
Questions on this? A motion to waive the second reading of policy 5661, wellness. Sarah first, Janine second, all in favor? Motion to adopt policy 5661, wellness. Shauna first, Janine second, all in favor? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. 2 announcements, midwinter break, February 20th through the 24th, 2023, and our next board meeting is March 13th, 2023. Public comments. We welcome public comments that are related to the agenda. We ask that you be respectful of our time. We ask that you state your name and where you live. Please remember you cannot identify specific staff, student, personnel, or board persons. And if you need to address a specific situation, we ask that you contact the superintendent directly. Thank you. Public comment?
Okay, I do have one here from Kathleen Farber. She sent an email into Mrs. Sheets, so I'll just take you we've addressed some of the things that are in here, but I'll just kind of reiterate some of that. First question is has a committee been selected regarding the school mascot? Kind of answer that, we're not in that phase of anything, so you know the answer to that is no committee has been, we have not moved forward on any sort of situation. She mentions, alumni, current students, parents, PTL, boosters, et cetera. Those are all things that we've talked about. When it gets to that point, we definitely want to include, people in that discussion. The next two questions, why are we in a hurry to replace the mascot? Cambridge Central School District versus the New York State Board of Education Commissioner Betty Rosa, in a case that's being placed against them. I think Mr. Marco just mentioned that as well, and so forth. And the question is, would it not be prudent to wait for a decision on the appeal before making a final decision on changing the mascot? My understanding of that right now, so we're not in a hurry to replace the mascot. As you can see, we're just addressing the mandate that's there. Part two to that is, I believe, to my knowledge, the appeal is already been rejected. If there is another level of things going on, I'm not aware of that at this point in time. But I do know Cambridge and their appeal was rejected at that time. There was a replacement suggestion of Eagles. I'm not sure where that's necessarily coming from, maybe from our discussion on the project. Will not be allowed. Why? The eagle is not solely a symbol of indigenous people of America. The eagle was a symbol used during the Roman Empire. Since 1774, the eagle has been and is the symbol of American for all of its people. Today, the presidential seal of the United States of America contains the bald eagle. If unable to use the eagle, please request that the New York State Board of Education advise as to all the names, symbols, etc. that are not allowed. So again, this would be a question. This example is eagles. When we get into that, we'd have to have some discussion. And a lot of schools are having that. You've heard about warriors and a lot of different things. So there's a lot of discussion. Again, we're not necessarily at that point just yet. Who will bear the cost of replacing the emblems on the gymnasium floor, the signs, the uniforms, the stationery? As we've talked about, unfortunately, the answer to that question is us. We will bear the cost of anything that's going as a district and as taxpayers and so forth. The answer I got to that is, will there be any money available to do that? And the answer is, and quote, you've had 20 years to do this. So you've had plenty of time to budget for this and do this. So whether we agree with it, I agree with that, that answer is where it's at. But yes, to answer the question, we bear the cost of that. And the final part of it is New York State Assembly and Senate have separate bills with regard to the use of indigenous people and mascots. Both bills have been introduced and are now in committee. In committee is only the second step in the long process of becoming a New York State law. So again, yes, I think there's pieces of this. I don't think we're in a hurry to do anything just yet. I just think, we have to follow a process that's along the way that what we're being told. If there are updates to that process or updates and changes, then we address that as a group together and discuss what those new updates are. So, and again, with anybody that has any sort of comments or questions, I encourage, I'd be happy to talk with everybody more about that, if they want to talk to me about this. The other thing I want you to do, Karen, is you check, see if anything, if there's anything else.
No, it's just, that was just that.
Okay. Motion to adjourn. Janine first. Sarah second. All in